so we're in Tel Aviv, and my guest today is Iris Shoor from Oribi. Iris, did I get it correctly?
Iris Shoor.
Iris Shoor from Oribi. Are you ready to give us some insights?
Yeah, sure.
Cool, let's start. So, Iris, what does Oribi do, and how do you guys make money?
Okay, so Oribi is some kind of competitor for Google Analytics. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. But we're really trying to provide like a very different angle for marketing analytics and to do it in a very simple way without code, without lots of numbers. So it's a tool that helps you to understand better how to allocate your budget, what to do next, what is the impact of each activity. And we do money in a very simple way of SaaS subscription. We have 400 customers today, and we're hoping for more.
So it's a way of simplifying Google Analytics, which you needed kind of a PhD in order to start working with it.
Yeah, I think that Google Analytics is, even though it's a very, very common tool, it's a tool that most people don't like. I think that there's a dissonance between marketers that really like the creative work and Google Analytics, which is very, very data savvy. And we're trying to create something which is more like marketing oriented, simple to understand, fun to use, a product that people would love.
The business model is pure play SaaS, or do you guys also offer some consulting services, white glove services?
No, it's pure play SaaS. I think that for us it's very important to, like from day one, I imagine the company is a very high scale company. We're targeting a very large audience. And for us it's more about like finding the right marketing machine, product market fit, and to scale up. So it's pure SaaS, and it's less about services.
What's an average deal size that you guys are selling? Is it like an ACV? Is it in the thousands?
It's in the thousands. Today it's around like $5,000 a year. So we're targeting mainly like mid-sized companies. It's interesting because we do see like the SMBs coming, but we also see enterprise companies coming. But right now we decided to focus on the mid-size market because I think that for us it's the best way to grow fast.
Are you guys bootstrapped, or have you raised funds?
We raised funds.
Are you comfortable in sharing how much you've raised?
Yeah, to date we raised 12 million. Coming from Sequoia Capital, Tilvik Partners, and S Capital.
And in how many rounds?
In 2 rounds.
2 rounds.
Yeah.
So seed and A.
Yeah.
How big is the team today, and how are they broken down? So R&D and etc.
Mm-hmm. So today we're 23 people. The biggest team is of course the R&D. I think that there are like 11 people over there. And we have about 3 people with customer success and support, a small but very powerful marketing team, and also like a very strong product team. So we have 2 product managers, a designer, and a small and powerful sales team.
And everyone is in Israel? Or Israel, different countries?
We have, our VP customer success is based in New York, but other than her, we were all based here.
What drove you to Oribi, and how you got the idea?
Yeah, so Oribi is my 3rd company. Each company was very different. The first one, I studied architecture. The first one was around like 2D and 3D modeling. The second one was for developers and DevOps. And I think that like the connecting line between all is that all companies were B2B. And high scale, low touch, something that I really love doing is the product and marketing aspects, and to simplify products that people don't like. And I think for me, like the most important thing about building a company is building a product that people would love, people would use. And that's what drove me here. I think that for me, I just recognize a huge opportunity about a really large market that also people are using the same product, but they don't like it. And over here, we're using like the technology and the product and the low-touch marketing to approach people and to create a very different experience.
Was it more of a process of scratching your own itch, or more of an analytical approach of sitting down and thinking, okay, what can I do? Here's a market, and maybe I can serve that market?
Yeah, it was more of the latter, so more of like an analytical approach. I think that Unlike my first company, which was more, everything was about like intuition, and some of it was correct, some of it wasn't. And with this company, it was more about like analyzing the opportunities, the market, having lots of research before starting the company, speaking with lots of other companies in this area, understanding why they didn't go to this specific solution. So it was very analytical this time.
If I understand correctly, from what you said, you sold your first company. Not so sure about the second one. Let's go back to the first company. How was it to have a life-changing event, an exit event? How did it change your life? How did it change your perspective?
It took me a while to change things. I remember that like the first vacation that I took after the exit was like 6 months after the exit. And I remember that probably like a year after the exit, I still had like the old sofa and the living room. And so it wasn't like, okay, so we made like a bunch of money and then now we're going to change everything and I'm a different person. And I think that like most experiences in life, it's usually not like a tipping point. So it was like a major step. But it's also like opened my appetite to create like a larger company, bigger products, larger exits. So I think that for me it was just like a very significant step.
An empowering moment.
Empowering moment. Yeah, but just a step. It's not like that my whole life changed or something like very in my core changed because of the exit.
From the first line of code until your first customer, paying customer, what was the timeline?
It was long, and it was like a year and a half, maybe even a bit more. In hindsight, I'm not sure that, I can't say that, I do think that it's very important to reach to your audience and the market as soon as possible, because there are some things that I really love the field of like getting dirty, and there's something about like sitting at the office, planning the things, and that you're so disconnected from the audience. And I know that throughout this year and a half, we've done lots of like marketing tests, try to play with like certain features that weren't paid features yet, but we had engagement. That was very important for me, just to see how.
So you had customers, but not paying customers. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but also like I think that I was willing to burn some of the customers. That's something that is very like something that I strongly believe in. That it's okay to have some upset customers. So like the worst case scenario, all of them will stop using Oribi forever. They will write something negative on their Facebook page. Other people will read it. It's okay, we have a huge market. Even if we're going to burn like 1% of it, that's still okay. And so I think we did release like features that were very fresh and not mature yet, but it really helped us understand how they communicate with it, how they use it. I do think that there's something a bit deceiving about the concept of MVP, and I think that's something that people love speaking about, and how easy it is to release a product like 2 months after you start a company. But in many cases, until you have like a good product, it's really, really hard to understand how people are going to use it. Because if you see people that use your product for like 20 seconds and then they leave, is it because they don't need it or because the technology is not good enough? So let's take like a tool like Waze, for example. If you were to use Waze for the first time and get like a really wrong estimation or like a silly route, you would stop it right away. And it's not because you don't need Waze. So I think like the MVP concept is a bit tricky. So I do think it's important to be in touch with your audience, and like for me it was very important to understand like the acquisition cost. Is it going to cost us like $5 to get a user or $500? So that's something that I was able to test to see what they're looking for. But I think that until you have like pretty mature technology, it's hard to say if people need the product or they don't.
And then the first, maybe even first few customers, if I understand correctly, it was more about flipping the switch of paid to get them, or it was more of a friend of a friend that you managed to land this contract, etc. So how did you get the first?
Yeah, so I have like this no intro policy. And I think that the most interesting part about like building a high scale company is really nailing the entire loop of having someone reach out to you, try the product, start engaging with it, start paying. And I think that if, for example, I would ask like investors to intro me to their portfolio companies, they would have to use the product. They're doing a favor. They might not need it. And I think that the entire concept is very, very different. So that's why I decided that I have like this no intro policy. All the customers that we have are users that got to us from like Facebook ads, social posts, also as scalable marketing channels. And that's something that I do find very important. I think that you can use intro for like customer surveys, just to speak with them, to understand the problems, but I think that if you're looking with like the glasses of customers that you reached out to with intros, that's like an entirely different picture, and it can be for both sides. It can be like they can be your best users because you had more time for engagement and to teach them, and they can be your worst users because they weren't really looking for this solution or they're not the right target audience. I would say that it's more like this approach. I think it's more relevant for a company like Oribi that is very high scale. If you need like 10 customers and you're also you're only like enterprise focused, so I think that's a different story.
If I understand correctly, then there shouldn't be any difference then on how you're getting like the next batch of customers then versus the first batch of customers, because it's all still the same. It's your marketing machine, getting the inbound leads, etc. You're not treating it differently now than you did before.
Yeah, I think that there was this like famous article of like do things that don't scale. I think it's correct for some things, but I think that with a company like us, it's like Oribi, it's very important for me to build a marketing machine because I feel that's like a core part of the company. If I'll be able to get to the first like 100 customers in one way, but it's not scalable, I don't think that I really managed to take the company to the next level. So if with my previous company, it was more about like the initial customers derived from like guerrilla marketing and working with like Reddit and Hacker News and this kind of stuff and getting the early adopters. So over here, it took a very different approach. And for me, it was more about building something that can scale, and for the first customer to behave like the 1,000 customer.
Your marketing is mostly based on Facebook ads. Is that correct?
It was very important for me to base the marketing on a few channels. I think like one thing that I try to avoid is the heart attack fear of entrepreneurs, that if something specific won't work right with your company, the entire thing is going to, I don't think it's crash, but it's going to go to some kind of a freeze for a few months. So even though Facebook and Instagram work best for us, we decided to expand and to work more with YouTube and Google and some influencers, and to really build like a few legs that we can build this like table of marketing on top of. And that's also like for me something that I feel that it's a very important lesson. I don't want to be dependent on one channel. I know that like if Facebook will change the algorithm, something will stop working, so on, I can't take the risk of freezing the marketing for a few months.
Acquiring customers with hard cash versus content marketing and getting them as a like non-paid inbound customers. Where do you stand with that balance?
Mm-hmm. So my roots as a marketer is in content marketing, and actually the first time that I started paid acquisition was over here at Oribi. I feel that content is becoming much more challenging, and the main downside of content is that it's really hard to scale. So with Oribi, I took a different approach. I thought that I do want to start it based on paid acquisition because it's very easy to scale. And today we see that we have like a great month, and for example, for us, COVID is actually working well. We have lots of e-commerce customers, lots of other customers that are expanding their digital marketing now. And now we see that it's a good time, the unit economics look good. We're able to double the marketing budget and to double the revenue. And we are adding on top of it right now more of like the content strategy, working with influencers, working with partners. But I do think that for us it was a very good decision to start with paid acquisition, mainly because it's very easy to scale.
How are you selling today? Is it inside sales? I mean, with the ticket size of a few thousands ACV, you can definitely deploy inside sales into it, but I'm curious, how are you doing it?
Yeah, so the way we look at it is mainly like, I think that we're a very, very data-oriented company, as you can imagine like what we do. And for us, it's all about measuring the CAC and how much it costs us to acquire a new customer. So the first, I think like 150 customers arrived with zero touch. We didn't have any sales as a company. And then we started adding some inside sales. And so that we managed to really improve the CAC. The process is very, very light. Today, like most customers go through a 30 minutes demo and that's it. So there isn't really like a sales cycle. The cycle is very short. It's about like 1 week or 2 weeks from when they sign up to Oribi. So it's a very light approach, but we do see that the inside sales helps. Mm-hmm.
I noticed you went through a couple of stages from flat pricing, low end pricing to flat, higher pricing, and now I think it's more tiered. What are your thoughts of what were the thought processes behind pricing?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think that since we are working with such a diverse audience, and we do see customers coming from like different marketing budget ranges and different types of sophistications and needs, it is something that is very hard to price. We started with something very simple. We increased the prices. Now we're building like different packages. I think that the key is really to find a match between the value we give them and how sophisticated they are and how to build the packages. So right now we're pricing based on traffic, which is not very accurate because you can't have like a huge blog, but you hardly see any revenue from it, and you can have a very small company, but each lead worth a lot. And right now we're building like a different package, which is more based on integrations and how you use the product. And over here, I think that it's also like very challenging to find something that is right, but is still simple. I think that most customers, they don't like to be surprised at the end of each month. Right. They don't like very complex models, and it's hard to nail it right.
And it's also hard on salespeople. If it's easier to sell a flat price thing than explain tiered. Yeah. Has that become a challenge to the sales guys once you introduce tiered pricing?
No, I have to say that in our case they were happy about it because in many cases they felt that they're underselling, or they have like this huge customer who's paying only like $500 a month. So that's not the main challenge for us, but I think it's more about explaining to customers. What does work well for us is that since the sales cycle is so short, we can test different pricing models. So it's easier for us to test something new every like 2-3 months, and then after like 2-3 weeks to see if it's working or not.
How do you measure growth today in Oribi? Is it one KPI, and what is it then, or what? Is it team size? Is it revenue? How do you measure growth?
I would say that it's revenue. It's a CAC payback. So it's how many months it takes us to gain back the expense on each customer. And it's a churn, like how engaged users are and how long do they stay with Oribi. So these are like the main metrics that we count all the time. Other metrics that are also important for us is the win rate, like how many users convert from a free trial, and also we're very keen on the marketing metrics, how much it costs us to get a new trial, how much it costs us to get a new customer, and so on.
If I meet you again at January 1st, 2021, what would be like a the growth that you're expecting to hit by the end of 2020?
So this is like a really tough question during like this crazy time of COVID. I think that the original plan was to grow by 4x during 2020 and 2021.
To reach 4 million ARR?
Yeah, a bit less because we reached the 1 million ARR like at the beginning of the year. Now it seems like it's going to be lower, mainly because we decreased the marketing budgets and then we increased them again.
And it's very aggressive, 4x.
Yeah, so it's going to be lower, but I do hope it's going to be like 3x.
For you as a founder, what are the KPIs that you keep a daily watch over? Things the 3 KPIs. I know how you measure growth, but are those the same KPIs that you check every day and make sure that those are right?
Yeah, so I think that there are some metrics that you can't really check every day, like the CAC payback or engagement and so on. What I do check every day is the marketing performance, like how much it costs us to bring new trial users and new paying customers from each channel. And that's about it on a daily level. On a weekly level, there's more, and on a monthly level, there's much more.
So as a founder, what keeps you up at night? What worries you the most?
Everything. I'm a very worried founder. I really envy the founders that are more optimistic, and I just had a conversation with a friend last night. She's also an entrepreneur, and she told me that what really encourages her is that she knows that everything is going to be alright with startup. It's always like you get to the last minute, things don't work out, you have a problem, you think that everything is going to collapse, and somehow things usually work out. And I was just thinking to myself that I always feel that the company might lose money, we're going to have a bad month, so I am very worried about things. I don't think that it really helps. I think that the main thing that I'm worried of usually is more of like the long-term process, and if we're heading to the right path, decisions about the roadmap. I do feel that sometimes I'm very concerned about like having a bad week or seeing some trend with churn and so on, but these are things that I feel that are usually just like the usual roller coaster. And every time we have like a really bad week, we all like speak about it and what went wrong, and then like a day later we have like 20 deals a day. So I think for me it's more about where the company is heading and the roadmap.
This is not your first rodeo; it's the third. What is different this time than the previous 2?
Well, this time I'm a sole founder. So this is very different. I think it has lots of upsides and lots of downsides. I do feel that the company is more focused, that I'm able to see it. Like for most entrepreneurs, they have this like very vague vision. They know like where it should go, but it's really, really hard to explain to other people, including your co-founders. So I feel that with Oribi, I managed to move faster, and there is a higher focus. And I also feel that I was able to hire a really amazing team because they don't have co-founders. So they're able to, so people that are somewhere in between of like starting their own company and they're not sure about it, but they are very talented. They got the opportunity here to really lead a certain part of the company. And the downside is that there are some cases that I really want to have like the shoulder of the co-founder and to have someone else who is going to carry everything as well. So that's one difference. I think another difference is that during the first startups, I wasn't a mother yet. It was very easy to stay at the office until like midnight every day. I had this feeling of like limitless time. And with this company, it's like crazy. I have like a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Oh, wow.
So again, it's more about focus. I have to say that I don't feel that I do less. And I do think that like even though I work less, I manage to be more focused, and I think that there is something very problematic about feeling that you can't stay every day until midnight, so it's okay for every meeting to take 3 hours and to work on every side project and to start every new feature. And there's something that I feel that like when I'm being very focused, the entire company is more focused, because I can't add like any new great idea that I have, any like new feature, new marketing approach. But I do feel that it's something that is very different from the other companies.
What's kind of the best thing for you about being a founder?
Yeah, I feel that for me this journey is really like a psychological treatment. I really feel that throughout the different companies I had to face all my fears and to really grow as a person, not on a professional level, on the personal level. So to deal with public speaking and with writing and with sales and with managing people and with making hard decisions and managing money. So I feel that there's something about really like opening up all the challenges in life, but in a way that you really have to face them, and it's very measurable for good and bad. And that's something that I feel that really contribute to me. So I think that like every time, there's something that I really hate about startup, that every time that you feel that everything is in place, everything is working, it lasts only for like a few weeks, then you have to do something entirely different, you have to learn something new, and I hate it, but I love it, and I always remind myself that this is the way I grow, and I learn new things about myself, about other people, about the world. So I think this is for me like the most exciting part of being so diverse.
You have a blog, a great one, where you document the journey you're doing with Oribi. You did a lot of public speaking. Personally, I remember a talk you gave, I think 7 or 8 years ago. I do a lot of podcasts. How has personal branding helped you? And do you recommend other founders, or specifically first-time founders, to invest in personal branding?
Yeah. So if I mentioned before the journey or the challenges, I think this was like a huge challenge for me. I'm an introvert. I don't like networking. I hate like large dinners. But I really felt that it's important to put myself out and to give my unique voice a place to be heard. And I think that I've done it like in my way. It wasn't an easy way. I think that like for writing for me, it was a huge challenge. I felt that like I'm good in like drawing, I'm good in like the technical side. I've never wrote before I started my own blog, and I think that I kept it like very authentic. So I'm really trying to. When I start something new, I try not to look at different references too much. Only after I have like the concept, but to really bring myself out. And I think that's something that really helped me, even though it's and I also have like still like a conflict around it. Why should I do it? Why is it important in my brand? Why is it should be about the company? But I think that people relate to people, not to companies. And for me, it was always about the company. So I know that it's easier to hire great talents. It's easier for me, like I created an amazing network without any dinners and meetups and social events. And I feel that many people feel that they know me because I write in a very personal way and a very honest when I do the public speaking and the podcast. So I do think that it's something that can be a game changer. And there is some kind of like a halo around people that write and they talk, even though not all of them are smart or have the right experience, but there is something about it, and more about like the feeling that they know you. And I know that with my blog, I took a risk of being very honest and speaking about the downside as well. And I was worried that some people will see it as like personal failures or wouldn't like to associate with me. And in a way, I told myself, okay, that's okay. These are the people that I don't want for them to work with me, or I don't want to work with them. So it's also about like exposing your brand and people, bringing the right people that like who you are, or have the same values to work with you.
What's your golden tip to either a first-time founder starting right now, or maybe somebody on the fence of starting out and being a founder? What's your golden tip or two for those people?
Mm-hmm. So I would probably give 2 tips. The first one is focus. I think that's something that is so hard to do, and I still like every time I have like new ideas and we must develop this feature and it's going to take only 2 weeks. But when I look at all the great companies, they all succeed because of doing like one thing really good. And it's not about creating also their own like chat and the inbox and working on the website for months. So it's really about understanding the value that you can provide and focusing only on that. I know that when I meet many like first-time entrepreneurs, and also second time, third time, it's always about, okay, but I have to develop this feature, and we need to have like internal reporting system, and we can't do without this part, and I also do it. And I think that this is something that can change, like if you're spending like 100% of your resources on the right thing, or 30% of the resources. And the other tip is just to move fast. I think that there is some kind of a conflict that entrepreneurs are usually like very thorough people. They're very well organized. They're perfectionists. They want to have like the best results. And in many cases, instead of like working for 2 months on your website, you should take like a WordPress template and to have a website live in 2 days. Instead of working like, I met many entrepreneurs who told me that, okay, we're working for like 2 months on the business plan. And like do it in 3 days, just understand the concept and move on. So there's something about moving fast. If something is not working, changing it fast, and not investing too much at things that are not your core product or your core value, that I find very important. I do think that like many of the good entrepreneurs that I met, the only difference between them and other entrepreneurs that didn't manage to build a successful company is that they moved much faster.
Say Oribi is acquired next week, a huge sum, whatever it is, it's acquired. Are you going home to sleep and you're done, or do you have another startup in you?
I'm probably going to decide that I'm done for a month, and then I'm going to come back to do something. I feel that like my essence is more about building stuff, and I really love the feeling of taking a challenge and then to analyze it and to build something around it and to see how it performs. That's also the reason that I really love startups, because I feel that the feedback loop is so fast, and you have a challenge and like in 1 month you see that if you're right or not. And it's also why I love marketing so much, because it's very fast. So I'm probably going to build something. I'm not sure it's going to be another tech company, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to build something.
Well, Iris, thank you so much for being our guest, and lots of luck with Oribi.
Thank you.
And maybe we visit you January 1st and see if you got those 3x growth.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.